there is more to the world than beliefs can touch. And in fact, there is a level at which my own encounter with the world is not on a level of belief. In other words, what I believe about it doesn't matter so much as the real world. But that's still very abstract. All of that stuff doesn't help me make any money. It doesn't help me to make my case to other people, since necessarily I'm going to have to tell them not to believe me. I have to, in fact, tell them that there is some assembly required in their own conception of the world in order to make use of anything that I might tell them. And that's the case with anything other people might tell them too, but other people might not be so forthcoming about that part. They might not even know. I often say things like, consciousness is all there is. I also say that consciousness is equivalent of emptiness. I'm using consciousness in this way as a very fundamental principle, which is something that in its most fundamental form, consciousness is indeed the forces that maintain the integrity of a hydrogen atom, for example, or any other atom. That too is what I'm referring to as consciousness, which is also the twofold nature of emptiness. One might also look at it as space and time. One might also look at it as electromagnetism on one hand and gravity on the other hand. And I'm sure that even whoever's listening to this would kind of throw up their hand saying, well, he's just making stuff up. True, I am making stuff up. That's part of how thinking works. But I'm trying to draw parallels and also trying to work out a series of actions, a series of levels of complexity, which lead to what we commonly refer to as human consciousness. That it's not like human consciousness is unprecedented in the natural world. What I want to do is show that it is a complex form of something which is a repeated pattern, which exists at many levels, going down to what makes elements possible. Part of what I have to call into question is the very foundation of what it takes to explain something. Am I actually giving causation? Am I showing parallels? I mean, how does the explanation as such fit into the words that I'm saying? Because the words that I'm saying are a way of trying to convey a thought that I'm thinking, but it's not always a direct line from what it is that I'm thinking and what it is that you take from the words that I say. In other words, I'm inducing a state, a mental state, a conscious image in your mind using certain words. But exactly what those words do in your consciousness are A, beyond my control, and B, beyond my conception, whether I'm talking about one person or a whole host of people. In each case, I have an idea of what you might take out of what I'm saying. I'm aware that different people will take the words that I'm taking differently. I'm aware of it in terms of having had conversations with people. I remember which conversations I've had with which people to a large degree. And all of us are like that. We don't use words in general. We're always using words as part of a specific discourse. And we have an idea of the people we're talking to, even if that idea is a character which we've built in our heads in a story about someone who we call everyone, or a typical person from any one of numbers of groups in ways of generalizing about people. It could be something as simple as, the average person living on the Upper West Side. I might have ideas. Or it might be the average North American. Or it might be the average man, or the average woman. So I'm back here in my car. Lighter, what is it? It's coming up, I guess, on 11 o'clock or so in the morning. Birds are out and chirping. Cars are honking. So many people. People's lives are encapsulated in their face. You're seeing what it feels like to be them. You're seeing what it feels like to be me. It feels kind of silly sometimes. That's all I got. That's all we've got. What is it that we're here for? I do have to keep asking myself that. Even if I had an answer that was sort of made sense yesterday, it might not anymore. I have to be ready to throw it all out the window. Could just be one conversation away from throwing out everything that I know to be, that I've known to be, that I thought was. Maybe it really isn't. It's possible. But I'm okay with that. How many of the people walking by have I already seen at some point in my life? In how many ways, how many times? Is it someone who I've crossed paths with? Maybe I talked to them. Maybe something I did affected them without me realizing who they were. How many people with computers have I helped who indirectly then affected the people who I'm seeing walk by me one at a time? But it's possible. It's possible we're all the same. Not just the same types of creatures, but really the same creature. It could be it's a single consciousness. Now, that this consciousness term, I think people might not understand the way in which I'm using it. It's okay. I just try to use it in a very general sense, in the most general sense. I try to see consciousness not as something which is fundamentally different for people than it is for other animals, or for animals than it is for other reactive entities. The physical makeup of molecules and atoms and energy in itself is a very primitive form of what I think of as consciousness. So consciousness as a human consciousness is just a very, very complicated, nuanced version of this energy exchange which we call existence, what is being itself. Now, is that so general that it becomes meaningless? I think not, because what I'm trying to do is understand for myself. Before being able to put it into words, I have to be able to visualize it in such a way that it organizes the field of my existence. I don't have to have a name for it in order for me to recognize that there is such a thing as the field of my existence. But my describing it to you will necessarily be less than your field of existence is for you. So I am extrapolating that my field of existence has certain structural similarities to whatever your field of existence may seem like to you. You're going to have different ways of formalizing it and recognizing it and describing it and even remembering it. But I still feel there's value in me trying to understand it for myself
and using available vocabulary to make it available to those who are not myself, but who can understand this language. And it is with great gratitude that I am alive at this point and am a member of the Homo sapiens species and a speaker of the English language, and thereby have access to some millions, billions of people, to use the vernacular, that if I can get my words to them, I hope that some of them would find it useful. So many beautiful people. So many beautiful people. Okay, thank you. It's always a question, do I think of my own needs and how to fill them? Or do I think of what it is that needs to be done? What is the big problem? The big problem. Because if you solve the wrong problem, you make things worse. You have to solve the big problem. And you have to solve the biggest problem first. Otherwise, you make the big problem worse, even if it looks like you've made some other problem better. There are a lot of things which make things look better in the short term, but in the long run, if they make things worse, then that is not the big problem. And the big problem is people don't know themselves. They don't know who they are. They don't know who they're supposed to be. And this character, which I'm talking about, which is everyone, is a figment of my own imagination. That's the first problem. More later, dude.